Thank you, Daniela. It is time for the headliner presented by Miller Lite. Let's bring in the play-by-play voice of Detroit Tiger Baseball on Fox Sports Detroit, Matt Shepard. Matt, thanks for joining us again on the headliner. Really appreciate your time.
Always love it, Art. Good to talk to you, buddy.
Well, let's first of all, the trade deadline. Al Avila before it said, "Hey, we're not buyers, we're not sellers. If something comes our way," and lo and behold, for like the third time or fourth time in his career, Cameron Maybin is involved in a transaction with the Detroit Tigers. This time being shipped to the Cubs for Zach Short. Were you surprised the Tigers made a move? Were you surprised it was Maybin?
Not necessarily. I didn't think they'd make a big move. I didn't think they would trade any of their pitching because you're only one starter injury away from having to dip into those resources of Tyler Alexander or Daniel Norris, who was kind of linked to Tampa a little bit. Cameron Maybin, look, I mean, Detroit's got some outfielders, right? I mean, Victor Reyes should be playing every day, and he basically is, but they're moving him around a little bit. They've got Travis Demeritte, who they've called up and playing right field a little bit. You've got another one in Derek Hill who's knocking on that proverbial door. So it doesn't surprise me that much. On a one-year deal, wasn't going to be back with this team next year anyway. They'll miss some of the things that he brings to the clubhouse for sure, and his professionalism. But overall, I think they've kept the bones of this team intact, and that's a good thing.
It seems that Zach Short, he was the 21st prospect in the Cubs system. I've read various reports saying in the Tiger system he's number 27. Yet he seems like a good depth player. Great infielder, known as a shortstop, but versatile. Has a little bit of pop in his bat. But I think Avila was pretty honest about it. Said this is pretty much a depth guy. You know, we've replenished the stock a little bit more with position player.
Yeah, I mean, he's also a guy who gets on base, so he draws some walks. So that's important. Basically, what they've done is they've taken Zach Short and they've made him that versatile player that maybe like a Dawel Lugo could not be, right? So he could play second, he could play short, he could play third. You mentioned going from 21 in the Cubs to 27 in Detroit. That tells you the depth that Detroit has within their farm system and tells you how good of a job they've done in trying to, replenish what was lost in the past. So I don't anticipate him being a major factor for the Tigers anytime soon. You've got guys who are in front of him, guys like Willie Castro, for example. We've seen what Isaac Paredes has been doing. I like Cody Clemens. I think the organization does too, and I think eventually you're going to see him make his mark on this Tigers team. So Zach Short's got it's a nice little logjam that Detroit has going on with some of their position players. Sergio Alcantara is another one of those guys. So hopefully Detroit will be able to use some of the guys that they have within the system before Zach Short got there. And if he's one of those super utility guys that is very important to just about any successful team, if he's one of those guys, then they've got themselves a pretty good player.
Well, yeah, we wish Cameron Maybin well until the next time we see him in Detroit, whatever that may be, because there's always something. Cameron Maybin and Detroit are connected at the hip here. But best of luck to Cameron Maybin with the Cubs. Let's go. The Tigers, 16-16. My battle cry was, why not the Tigers when this season began? And then there was a 9-game winning streak, so I sort of calmed myself down. But again, why not the Tigers? And Shep, you've got a captive audience. It sounds like.
Yeah, I know. My dog just feels the need to just bump open the door anytime she feels like it's important to her. I think that the beauty of what this team has done, Art, and they've won 5 straight going into this series against Milwaukee. The beauty is they found different ways to win. So they have a season high 18 hits against the Cubs, and they beat them early on. They come out and they find different ways in taking their bullpen, which by the way is in the top 5 in the majors in walks and hits per innings pitched, but has been used an awful lot, and rely on them a little bit. And while the offense may not have been clicking most recently against Minnesota, what do? They get clutch hits. Jamer Candelario, Jonathan Scope. They're finding different ways to win, and I think that should be really encouraging. I personally feel this staff and this entire team has been re-energized with the call-ups of Tarek Skubal and Casey Mize. And I know they're not going deep into games necessarily. Mize is still looking for his first win, but you can tell he's a bulldog. You can tell he's a tough son of a gun. He's not going to back up. He's not going to let batters own that plate. He's going to try to avoid them allowing them to use their arms. I know he hit 3 batters the other day, but I personally think instead of looking at just the 3 hit batters, what did those hitters do later in the game? They were not extending their arms. They were a little bit back in the box. They were, I don't want to say fearful, but they were cautious in their approach. I think Casey Mize kind of helped set that tone.
Well, it's really interesting. I cannot believe you can tell we've been friends a long time because I was just about to say I think what re-energized this club was the call up of my Screwball, and don't forget Isak Paredes.
Right.
I mean, all 3 of them kind of gave a shot in the arm to this club, and I couldn't agree with you more. The thing I like about Casey Mize, and I tell people this, I think he has the talent of a Verlander and a Morris, but he has the edge of a Jeff Weaver who, was a little bit psycho at times. And, Casey, when we had him on the headliner about 6-7 weeks ago, he said he's not afraid to throw inside or that he considers the plate his. I love that about him. But then you throw in Skubal, who we've heard things about. That kid from it's like they say about college football teams from week 1 to week 2, they make the most improvement. He looked like a different pitcher in his second start. He really, really did. Pitching's good.
And you could see, Art, you could see how he knew when the end was coming for him, and he amped it up a little bit more, right? He got to 97, 98 in his last inning because he said, this is my last inning. I'm going to go all out here. It may have to change a little bit moving forward, but I hope Tigers fans are noticing the same thing that you and I are, that these guys are truly legit, that they are not afraid to pitch inside, and that they're going to work hard at getting better in their next outing. It's really energized, I hope, a fan base with those 2 guys, and I'm glad you brought up Paredes because I neglected to bring him up, and I should have. Here's a guy who's going to get more at-bats as the season continues. We're going to see him give you good at-bats. Struggled a little bit Minnesota last time out against Kenta Maeda, but overall, this is a guy I think who might be positioned at third base for right now until Spencer Torkelson eventually gets better. I know they want to keep him there, and maybe you see a Paredes move to second base, for example. But right now he looks pretty comfortable at that position and gives you a little bit of sock at the bottom of the lineup.
Yeah, I want to bring up because you're so far out. Have you officially one-picked a stick yet? Because
I have not one picked a stick, and it's a long way to go, man. It's only 1 month deep. Remember, I had a huge lead last year, and Simo caught me, and I finished 3rd. So I'm trying not to jinx myself, Art.
Well, the reason is why. Pardon me. Then I'll take it all back. But with that said, though, Jonathan Scope. I just shudder to think where this team would be if CJ Cron was healthy. I mean, those 2 guys have been great acquisitions. I mean, 16 and 16, what to say? I said that they were going to win, 27 games this year. And the next win that the Tigers have, which could come tonight in Milwaukee, they'll tie the Red Wings for victories this year.
Well, think about this. They've won as many games this year against Minnesota at home than they did all of last year. Last year, they were 2-8 at Comerica Park against the Twins. Wow. This year, they're 3-0 against the Twins at Comerica Park. That says something, and that's a good Minnesota lineup, right? Somebody said to me the other day, yeah, but the one was a doubleheader and both were 7 innings. I said, hold on, man. They were up 8-2 after 7. So you're trying to tell me they weren't going to hold on with that bullpen, the way they've been pitching at the back end of that bullpen? Give credit where credit is due. Have there been some disappointments? Sure. During a 9-game slide, you're bound to find that. But I think this team has proven that there is no quit, that they take on the personality of their manager. I love how recently they've been aggressive on the base paths. I hope that continues. And I love that their defense has been steadily improved. You mentioned Jonathan Scope. He's a big reason. CJ Cron was a big reason as well. And Jacoby Jones is back to the way he was playing a couple of years ago in center field. So, I don't know about the number of victories, Art. I'm not going to say they're going to sweep Minnesota this weekend when they play them either. I just think this is a much different team with a much different feel. When you lose 9 in a row, it can easily spiral out of control. How many games in a row that would be, I don't know. But to come back and beat the teams that they beat in the Cubs, who were in first place in their division, the Indians, who are close to first place in their division, and then Minnesota, who was in first place in their division when they came to Comerica Park. Tells you an awful lot about the way this team is headed.
I couldn't agree more. There's so many areas I really want to touch upon, but let's look at starting pitching. The bullpen looks for real. And I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
curse them either. And we can go on. Is Soto now the legitimate closer? You think Jimenez could win that back? But before we get there, I'm really curious. Boyd looks like he's figuring it out. Mize is only going to get better. Schoolboy, I'm a big fan of right now. Spencer Turnbull, he might go a little bit up and down, but I think he'll have more ups than he will down. I'm starting to like where the starting pitching is. And I'll be honest with you, Shep, I know they're playing a lot of doubleheaders coming up here soon, but these 7-inning doubleheaders, I think if
I
the
like them.
Tigers starting pitching holds up, really, really plays out well for them.
Yeah.
I mean, things are falling in nicely for the Tigers.
For a guy who loves hockey, you know an awful lot about baseball. I'm with you on that, man. I think, first of all, I think the rain out the other day really helped the Tigers bullpen. Because they've relied on him so much. So quietly, that was a win-win for the Tigers. Second of all, you're right. I think with the Scooble and Mize additions, it has, tough to say legitimized, but it has really kind of fortified the starting rotation for this team. Spencer Turnbull was outstanding last time out. He does have some ups and downs. You would like him to get through some quicker innings so he could go deeper into the game. I'm sure that will come. You're right, Matthew Boyd, the last 3 outings, his ERA a little bit around 3.3, pretty darn good. And I think Scooble and Mize will continue to get better as well. Think of this, Art. If this team had the opportunity, and I'm rooting for Michael Fulmer and a Daniel Norris combo tonight, but if this team had the opportunity to add a Manning or a Perez or a Faedo to this starting staff, how much more exciting it would be, because Manning's got unbelievable stuff, and some think that Franklin Perez has the best stuff, but we know Manning and Faedo have been shut down with right forearm strains. That's what you're looking at. This team, I've been guilty of this, Art, where we're looking for position players to come up and make their impact. You win with pitching and defense first and foremost. Detroit has gotten very good, dare I say, great bullpen pitching this season. I'm generalizing. They've had a subpar starting staff until recently, but their defense has greatly improved. That's why they're staying in games. That's how they're winning. And that could be the formula moving forward for a short period of time until they're able to get Riley Green in there in an everyday lineup, Spencer Torkelson on an everyday contract, Parker Meadows, an everyday player. That's how it's going to have to be. And sprinkle in a free agent signing here or there, but the pitching and the defense are going to carry you.
Well, certainly, I mean, giving teams extra outs is a recipe for disaster. And a couple of
Right.
times where where the Tigers have played sloppy ball, it has not worked out well for them. Real quickly, I know we're jumping around here, but do you think Soto is the answer as the closer right now? Do you like that? I mean, Buck Farmer, definitely the 8th-inning guy. I like Tyler Alexander. Kyle Funkhouser's starting to make a little bit of a move. Cisnero, I mean, they're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I do. I really like Cisnero and what he's done recently. I think the beauty is right now they've got a few guys. I wouldn't count Joe Jimenez out yet. I don't think that's necessary. But here's what Jack Morris and Kirk Gibson and Dan Petrie and Craig Monroe have always told me. If you're going to have a guy at the back end of your bullpen, the most important pitch is pitch 1, and it's got to be strike 1. If you can't throw strikes, then you're going to have a problem. Ideally, you'd love strike 1 and an out pitch, right? Gregory Soto does that for the most part. Jose Cisnero does that for the most part. Joe Jimenez used to do that, needs to get better at that, can't keep falling behind batters. Look what he did against Nelson Cruz the other day. He got him on a 3-pitch strikeout, or a 4-pitch strikeout, excuse me. That's exactly what Joe Jimenez has to do, and hopefully that gives him some confidence moving forward. I think the beauty right now, Art, is that you've got a lot of options, and that's a good thing. I know people think, oh, it's like having 3 quarterbacks. If you have 3 quarterbacks, you don't have one. Detroit's got some legitimate arms at the back end of that bullpen, and Ron Gardenhire, based on the situation, should feel comfortable using any of them.
Well, I'm excited. We haven't even gotten into the everyday players yet, or the positional players. I love the Rule 5 draft. The Tigers seem to do pretty well when they pluck people out of there. The emergence of Miggy. But with that said, we'll have to save it for another
Yeah.
time, Matt. But I really do appreciate your time today. Have a good call tonight against the Brewers, and we'll talk to you very, very soon.
All right, buddy. Always enjoy the visit.
All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Headliner presented by Miller Lite. It is the original light beer, only 96 calories, and of course, it is delicious and available for delivery. Back to you, Daniela.